You're about to hear a story the headlines won't tell you. A story buried under distractions, politics, and silence. If you care about the truth, like and subscribe to stay informed. Right now, in Gaza, families are being erased. Entire neighborhoods turn to rubble. Children, yes, children, are being killed in what many are calling a genocide, and that number rises every single day. But this isn't history. It's happening right now. And the worst part, the world is watching, and doing nothing. This is not a political debate. This is about basic human rights. Entire families are being erased from existence in a single night. If you've ever wondered when silence becomes complicity, this is it. You're watching Decoding History and Science, where truth meets evidence. And yet, the world's most powerful nations remain silent. Gaza under siege, which became a densely populated strip of land, just 25 miles long, surrounded by fences, checkpoints, and blockades. But instead of safety, they've inherited more trauma. That means control over what goes in and out: food, fuel, medicine, and even people. According to the UN, this blockade has created conditions that violate basic human rights. Right now, as you're watching this video, Gaza is under relentless bombardment. Have labeled the system as a form of collective punishment, which is illegal under international law. That event is known by Palestinians as Al-Nakba, the catastrophe. But the assault in 2023 and continuing into 2024 and 2025, it's different. International legal experts, including Israeli and Jewish voices, have warned that what's unfolding in Gaza meets several of the criteria defined under the Genocide Convention. This time, entire neighborhoods are being flattened. She was found alone in the rubble, her face covered in ash, her voice barely a whisper. She didn't cry, under candlelight, because hospitals had no power. His words, the screams of the injured echo in my mind at night: this isn't medicine, this is horror. Not because she wasn't in pain, but because, as rescuers said, she had no more tears left. Children in Gaza are growing up with no sense of normalcy. No playgrounds, no sleepovers, no stability. Their lullabies are the sounds of drones. Their games are played in bomb shelters, and their drawings: tanks, rockets, and destroyed homes. A mother who recorded a goodbye message to her children, just in case they didn't all wake up, and millions more just like her. Why global networks choose silence, or worse, sanitize the suffering? People writing their names on their children's arms. These phrases create the illusion that this is a fair fight, as if both sides hold equal power, equal responsibility. And collapsed hospitals rarely reach prime time. Why? Because many of those images are deemed too sensitive, too graphic, or politically charged by editorial boards. But the reality on the ground tells a very different story. Not to identify them while alive, but in case they're found after a bombing. Millions of people, especially in the West, never see the images, never hear the cries. We're asking them to show the truth, the raw, painful, inconvenient truth, because silence in the face of genocide is not neutrality, it's complicity. Never feel the outrage, because if you never see the wound, you'll never demand healing. Instead, they frame the crisis as complicated. But ask yourself, is targeting schools, hospitals, and refugee camps really that complicated? Over 70% of the casualties are women and children. They upload videos with battery levels at 3%. It's a system, a quiet, calculated erasure of Palestinian suffering from the digital world. Using shaky Wi-Fi in destroyed buildings, all to show us what no one else will. Accounts reporting first-hand stories from Gaza are flagged, demonetized, or outright suspended, according to the United Nations. In most conflicts, civilians make up the collateral, but in Gaza, they are the primary victims. Posts are removed for violating community standards. Algorithms bury the truth while promoting narratives that align with state interests. The scale of destruction is beyond anything seen before. Headlines can desensitize, but behind every statistic in Gaza, there's a name, a face, a story, and those stories deserve to be heard. That's why your voice matters. In a world of curated silence, bearing witness becomes an act of resistance. More than 35,000 people, the vast majority of them civilians, have lost their lives. Nearly half of them are children. This is about power, control, and the right of a people to live in dignity. They sing songs of hope in the darkest nights. These aren't faceless victims. Their stories are not political statements. They are pleas for humanity, and it is our responsibility as fellow humans to listen. These are human beings. Artists, teachers, bakers, nurses, children who dreamed of becoming doctors, athletes, dancers, and instead became hashtags and statistics. Their courage isn't just inspiring, it's heartbreaking. Residential buildings, hospitals, schools, mosques, places that should be safe are being turned into rubble. The United Nations has called Gaza unlivable. Aid trucks are being blocked. Fuel, water, and electricity are cut off. And in the middle of it all, over 2 million people are trapped. No way in, no way out. This is not just a war. This is a humanitarian catastrophe. It's alive. And if we refuse to acknowledge the roots of this conflict, we're choosing to remain blind to its consequences. For many Americans, Gaza feels like a distant place. But the pain, the injustice, and the suffering, it echoes far beyond borders. And the question we must ask ourselves is, how much longer will we stay silent? The history behind the conflict, to truly understand what's happening in Gaza today, we need to go back, not decades, but more than 75 years. In 1948, after the creation of the State of Israel, over 750,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced from their homes. Villages were destroyed, families scattered. Many of those families ended up in Gaza. Fast forward to today, Gaza is home to over 2 million people, half of them children, and many of them are descendants of those original refugees. But many human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, since 2007, Gaza has been under a strict land, air, and sea blockade imposed by Israel, each one deadlier than the last. Israel says it is necessary for security. It's not Jews versus Muslims. This is not a clash of civilizations. In the past 2 decades, there have been multiple military operations in Gaza. And let's be clear, this is not about religion. The word genocide isn't being thrown around lightly. He described operating on children without anesthesia. But even with this context, most media outlets still avoid using that word. History isn't just something in textbooks. Voices from Gaza. The human cost numbers can numb us. Take Ayla, a 10-year-old girl who lost her entire family in an airstrike. Or Dr. Ghassan Abu Saita, a British Palestinian surgeon who volunteered in Gaza. There's the story of Leila. The human cost is unimaginable. The psychological trauma is just as devastating. And yet, despite all this, despite the hunger, fear, and loss, they remain resilient. They smile, they share what little they have. These aren't militants. We cannot claim to care about human rights if we ignore the suffering of these people. The media silence why the world isn't watching. Have you ever wondered why this genocide, unfolding in real time, barely makes the evening news? The truth is, mainstream media isn't always about truth. It's about control and often complicity. Many Western news outlets frame the crisis as a conflict, a clash, or a cycle of violence. Gaza is one of the most heavily surveilled and controlled regions on Earth. And yet, images of bombed-out refugee camps, bloodied children. But we must ask, when did truth become too offensive to show? Meanwhile, independent journalists, aid workers, and even ordinary citizens in Gaza risk their lives to document what's happening. They live stream under fire. But here's the chilling part. Many of those voices are being shadow banned, censored, or deplatformed. On social media platforms, certain words like genocide or occupation trigger suppression. This isn't a conspiracy, and it works. That's why this video matters. We're not asking the media to take sides. What you're not being told, eyewitness accounts, and global reaction. When mainstream coverage falls silent, it's the eyewitnesses, the survivors, and the aid workers who become our only window into Gaza. And what they're describing is unthinkable. They've run out of painkillers, antibiotics, even clean water. Hospitals are overflowing, not just with the injured, but with the dead, wrapped in shrouds, lying in makeshift morgues. Doctors Without Borders has reported performing surgeries on children without anesthesia. The World Health Organization has condemned repeated strikes on medical facilities, calling them violations of international law. UN officials have described Gaza as a graveyard for children. These are official reports, and yet they're rarely covered in full. Why? Because acknowledging them would require confronting hard questions. South Africa filed a genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. It weaponizes identity to silence criticism, and it ignores the fact that many Jewish voices around the world stand with Gaza. There is a growing global consensus that what's happening in Gaza is not self-defense. It's a human rights catastrophe, because they know what oppression looks like, and they refuse to be silent in the face of it. But awareness alone is not enough. The people of Gaza don't just need our sympathy, they need action. Hundreds of legal scholars, including Jewish and Israeli voices, we don't sit in war rooms or draft UN resolutions. But that doesn't mean we're powerless. In fact, what we choose to do next matters more than we think. Have supported that move, calling it not anti-Semitic, but anti-genocide. Share footage, reports, and testimonies from journalists, medics, and survivors. Platforms may try to bury these stories, but the more we share, the louder they become. But through law, truth, and global solidarity, these aren't exaggerations. They can do it again. Is the world really okay with this? And if not, why are governments still sending weapons, not aid? If we mean it, really mean it, then we must stand up now, not tomorrow, not when it's over. Now, while many nations have condemned the violence in words, few have acted. And the question is, will we pass it? The United States, for example, has continued military aid to Israel, even as humanitarian groups plead for intervention. American officials often speak of Israel's right to defend itself. But what about Gaza's right to exist? Meanwhile, countries like South Africa, Bolivia, and Ireland have taken bolder stances, or even anti-Semitic, simply for advocating for Palestinian lives. Share a fact, share a name, remind the world that Gaza is not a statistic. It's a community of people who deserve to live. That false equivalency is dangerous. Don't let it fade from your feed. The world forgets quickly. But silence is what allows injustice to spread. And on the streets, the people are speaking. Ask, why is our tax money funding destruction, not relief? Public pressure works, but only if it's consistent. From New York to London, from Berlin to Cape Town, millions have marched for Gaza, calling for a ceasefire, for accountability, for dignity. But these voices are often dismissed as radical or misinformed. Social movements are accused of being anti-Israel. It shuts down dialogue. What's being buried beneath the headlines is this. And every day, more people are waking up. Not because the media told them to, but because survivors, eyewitnesses, and truth-tellers forced the world to look. A global responsibility. What you can do right now, if you've made it this far, you're already doing something that millions refuse to do. You're paying attention. Let's be honest. Most of us watching this video aren't policymakers. Start by amplifying verified voices from the ground. Donate, if you're able. 2 credible humanitarian organizations working in Gaza, UNRWA Doctors, Without Borders, the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, these aren't political groups. They're saving lives. If you're in the United States, use your voice to contact your elected officials. Call, email, or attend local meetings. Support peaceful advocacy groups that push for accountability, justice, and an end to occupation, not through violence. And perhaps most importantly, keep talking about Gaza. Your voice, your vote, your platform. No matter how small holds weight, social movements have shifted history before. This isn't about taking sides. This is about protecting human life. Because when we say never again, we can't be selective. Gaza isn't just a crisis. It's a mirror, a test of our moral clarity. In moments like this, history is being written. Not by leaders, but by ordinary people who choose to care. If this video moved you, don't let it end here. Leave a comment. Hit like to push this message through the algorithm. Subscribe to Decoding History and Science, where we speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. And remember, silence isn't neutral, it's a choice. Choose humanity.